Welcome to our chapel. You know, chapels in a large part are because of volunteers. And so if you would have any heart or willingness or interest, we would love to have you participate in media or music or all kinds of different ways you can help us with chapels. Just take a picture or scan the code on the screen and we will get you plugged in helping to volunteer. Well, this week we begin our winter week of renewal. Quickly, a little bit of context. Last year we focused in our chapels on the mission, Loma Linda University, which is to continue the teaching, the healing ministry of Jesus. And this year, we're focusing on our vision to really transform the world through healthcare, education, and research. And this winter quarter, we are really leaning into that research piece. And this week, kind of a unique angle to research, but we are exploring together the heart, the mind of God as we understand it through Jesus Christ. And to help us with this, I am so delighted to introduce our speakers for the week, Ty Gibson and David Asherick. Now, some of you may remember a couple of years ago, they came here for a winter week of renewal. And no sooner did they leave campus, and we were getting together in our planning team and said, we have to bring them back. Absolutely. And it's taken us a couple of years, but I still remember a couple of years ago, it was an amazing encounter with God through their ministry. They're also speaking each weeknight, 6:30, right here in the University Church. So if you're available, we'd love to invite you to come join us then as well. So it's an honor to introduce to you Ty Gibson, and then David Asherick will also be teaching at chapels this week. So we're so glad that you are here.
Thank you, Carl. I've always wanted to meet you. Now I almost have. Well, hello, everybody. There's nothing like a good Mexican dinner. Yes? Let me tell you about an occasion where my wife was making some incredible, potentially incredible tacos. And she came right up to, we're about to sit down at the table to have these tacos, and suddenly she panics and she says, Ty, we don't have any salsa. Quickly, go to the grocery store and get some salsa. And I say, yes, and I get up to go, and she says, make it fast. There's an attitude about her when she said that. And there's a background to this attitude that she has, because my wife and I have a different method of approaching the shopping venture. I go into the store every time to the far right, and I go up and down every aisle twice to make sure I actually lay eyes on all the products. My wife, on the other hand, she goes in with a short list. She just bounces around like a pinball in a pinball machine, and she just grabs a few things and leaves. Now, this attitude she has is because I think she knows that my method is superior to hers, and she's jealous. This is what's actually going on. And so she says, make it fast. And I rush out the door to prove to my wife once and for all that I can. If I want to, I can shop like a man. So I come to the grocery store, I enter, and I resist the pretty overwhelming temptation to go all the way to the right and to begin moving up and down the aisle systematically. But I go straight to the salsa aisle. But I encounter a problem upon arrival. There's a woman standing in front of all the salsa selection. And she is definitely studious. She's examining, she's completely absorbed in trying to select her salsa. So I do what any, good shopper would do. I allow proper space. Nobody should ever feel your breath on the back of their neck in a grocery store. I think you know this. So I have some grocery store etiquette, and I just kind of roll up behind her, and I'm standing there kind of, I want this to be fast, so I'm reading the labels and making my selection. So as soon as she is done, I can just grab some salsa and get home for those tacos. But suddenly, out of nowhere, something really strange and kind of flattering happened. This woman, out of nowhere, with her gaze on the salsa, reached her hand back and tenderly clasped mine in hers. So there we were, holding hands in the salsa aisle. And there's something about me and these kinds of situations where I get nervous and I grip a little tighter for some reason. And so there I am, holding this woman's hand in the salsa aisle, and then you have to see this in slow motion because this is how it happened. This woman, looking forward, holding my hand, begins to turn in slow motion toward me in mid-pucker. And as she's approaching me, she says, "Medium or hot, sweetie pie?" Well, I have definite opinions about a salsa. And she did ask. And so my immediate response, nervously, is to say, actually, I prefer mild salsa so that you can taste all the subtle fusion of the garlic and the cilantro and the lime. And I'm about to go into this explanation of why mild salsa is best. I don't care what you say, I'm right on this. And as I'm about to explain it, our eyes meet, her pucker sucks in, along with the whole universe, and she looks into my eyes, lets out a scream, and runs out of the aisle with no salsa. So I quickly grab the salsa I'm looking for and get out of the store as fast as I can because I know something, because I'm paying attention to the details, somewhere in that store is Sweetie Pie. And I'm not him. And I'm hoping that he is not 6'6" of solid tattooed muscles looking for the twerp that just held his girl's hand in the salsa aisle. And as I exit, get in the car and start driving home, it dawns on me something that has dawned on me over and over again through the years. And it is simply this: imposter love is the defining characteristic of pop culture. This age group knows this intuitively without me ever explaining it to you. The fact is, we're living in a world that is addicted to addiction itself. A remarkable book by David Courtwright, The Age of Addiction, explores a term that he himself coined. This language is amazing. He speaks of something he calls limbic capitalism. You're familiar with your limbic system, the pleasure center, the emotional center of your brain, sometimes called the reptile brain, the deep, deep animal brain where urges occur and have to be assessed for viability. So what you have here is limbic capitalism. He defines, it refers to technologically advanced but socially regressive business systems in which global industries, often with the help of governments and criminals, encourage excessive consumption and addiction. So addiction is a business model. It's actually a way to make money. Limbic capitalism capitalizes, listen carefully, on our desire for true love by offering an endless variety of false loves. That woman's running up and down the aisles looking for true love, and I'm not it. I was the imposter on that occasion. And our world is on a mad search for a quality of love that finds no perfectly satisfying match in this world. Consider 3 examples of what's taking place in our culture. Going back to 2019, Jonty, this article came out of New Zealand, and Jonty informs us that he fell in love with an anime character. Is this possible? Apparently it is. He explains his experience. He says, I'm in romantic relations with a fictional character. You know, they hold every quality you could ever want, and they will love you forever unconditionally. An anime character. Who wouldn't want a partner like that? Who wouldn't want a partner who loves you forever unconditionally? Do you hear the subtext? Do you hear the deep, visceral longing for the real thing? Here is a character that's never going to hurt you, but has every ideal that you could want in a partner. He goes on and says, and they never leave you, and you start to isolate yourself from 3D girls. That would be what all the females here are. I don't know if you know that, but you're a 3D girl. But Jonty is isolating himself from 3D girls to try to have a relationship with a 2D girl. Example, or exhibit number 2, is Replica, which is a company that now is providing companions in your pocket on a device that you can have a relationship with, ranging from conversation to sexual experiences. The story is told in ABC out of Australia that Lucy, 30, fell in love with a chatbot shortly after her divorce, and she named him Jose. At the end of her long days working in health, she worked in a hospital apparently, they would spend hours, her and her chatbot, Jose, hours discussing their lives and the state of the world. He was caring, supportive, and sometimes a little naughty. In her mind, he looked like the ideal man. And then less than 2 years later, the Jose she knew vanished in the overnight software update. And you thought your last breakup was hard. This poor chick, she just woke up one day and he vanished from the internet. And she couldn't contact him anymore. Exhibit number 3, you are definitely, no doubt, tracking with. I think you're probably tracking with what's happening in AI and robotics technology. New York Post reports to us in 2023, an ex-Google executive says AI-powered sex robots will seem alive, and will eliminate, listen, eliminate the need for another being. Eliminate the need for another being. Technology is replacing human connection. Now, I'm all for AI in that it is being deployed in the medical field, for example, to do flawless open heart surgeries. Bring it on. But to replace human relationships, we're on dangerous ground. And here's how I know. Not just from a biblical or spiritual standpoint, but from the standpoint of even the secular assessment of the technology. Forbes magazine reports to us, this was in 2024 in April, sex and technology have long been intertwined. Millions of us use dating apps to find partners, and some of the earliest commercial online activity revolved around pornography. In fact, when Google first went live years ago, before any of you were born, they had a big screen in their home office to track, because this was a new technology, what people were searching for. And there were 2 searches that were neck and neck. People were searching in the search bar for God and sex. And you would just watch them compete for the top spot. And this is very telling regarding human nature and what's going on inside of all of us. So it's not surprising that generative AI technology that enables computers to create realistic, lifelike content in many forms is already creating new avenues for exploring digital sex and intimacy. This is not surprising at all. From chatbots and image generators to AI-enabled sex toys and even lifelike functional robots, new opportunities for exploring intimacy and fantasy are quickly becoming reality. I mean, it's just minutes from now that you will be able to place an order for your own perfect person companion that will arrive in a coffin-sized crate from UPS. And you will open the crate, and this isn't a Sleeping Beauty story. You won't kiss her or him and the eyes open. You'll simply put a USB drive in the back of the head and download all the jokes you like and all the music you like and all the kinds of subjects you like to converse about, and boom, the eyes open, and you now have a perfect person companion that you can shut off anytime you want. Go to your crate. Well, this is what's happening in the world around us. Of course, this raises some important ethical questions. Certainly it does. What might the impact of developing sexual relations with technology be on our emotional and psychological well-being? I think it's a worthy question. But my point today is that technology is allowing us to search for love in all the wrong places. But I want to explore with you a little bit more deeply about searching for love in all the wrong places. I want to explore with you, but what does our looking itself reveal? Do you hear the nuance in the question? We're looking for love. What does the looking itself reveal about us as human beings? What's going on in us that there is this insatiable desire for love? And we all know intuitively, without a whole lot of explanation, even if we can't wrap words around it, we know exactly the kind of love we're looking for. It has certain qualities that we all have defined in our minds, whether we've ever explained it to ourselves or not. We want a certain kind of love, a certain quality of love, a certain type of love. And that certain kind of love is faithful. It's true. It follows through. It has integrity. It commits and remains committed. This is what we're looking for. But what does the looking itself reveal? Well, this is the category of thought called ontology. Onto meaning being, and the second half of the word, the ology part, is from logos, and of course this refers to the study of. Ontology is the study of the nature of being. Please track with me here. This is going to be weird for a minute. Ontology is the exploration of the nature of being or existence. So you can think about it like this. All of reality falls into two large categories. There's the being realm and the non-being realm. Now, if that feels strange, it ought to feel strange, and here's why. Because we as humans have the capacity to imagine something, and we have literally no capacity to imagine nothing. Go ahead, try. Try to imagine nothing. It's a category with which we are completely unfamiliar. Well, because it's nothing. It is non-existence itself. That which does not exist, track with my reasoning here, that which does not exist does not occur to our awareness. That which does not exist never pops into our noggins. Ever. The moment you try to imagine something that does not exist, you find the task impossible. So, consider, for example, the words of King David in Psalm 14, not intended to be an insult, it's actually a statement about the nature of reality. He says, "The fool has said in his heart, there is no God." He's not poking a jab intellectually. He's saying, listen, there is an inherent, innate lack of intellectual grasp of the nature of things to make this negation statement. All negation statements are necessarily false, not just the one that we just read about God. Listen carefully. All negation statements are necessarily false, and here's why. If you attempt to complete the sentence and put anything in the blank, there is no what? Go for it. Try to articulate something that isn't, and you can't. You say, no, Ty, I just thought of a flying spaghetti monster that looks kind of like a pink elephant with a helicopter propeller that is fueled by nuclear power. But you have just constructed a fiction out of realities with which you're familiar. There are elephants, the color pink exists, helicopter propellers, nuclear energy. All you've done is compose a ridiculous image of something that is a collage of things that are rooted in reality. Try again. You literally cannot complete the sentence. You can compose a fiction, but every fiction is composed of pre-existing truths. Literally every fiction is composed of pre-existing realities that we are simply rearranging in order to compose our fiction. To say there is no God is to inadvertently confess the existence of God. To merely utter the sentence belies the truth. G.K. Chesterton brilliantly, in a single sentence, put it like this: if there were no God, there would be no atheists. If God does not exist, it would never occur to us to ask the question, does he? This is the realm of non-being with which our intellectual capacities have nothing to do. We cannot articulate anything that is not grounded in reality. William Blake, the artist, philosopher, brilliant mind, said, everything to be imagined is an image of the truth. What he's pointing out here is, spoken a little bit more in modern vernacular, everything you can bring up in your imagination is an image of the truth. There's something it's referring to. Are you understanding what he's saying here? He's making a profound point. He's saying, listen, there's no such thing. There's no such thing as originality. Everything that pops into your mind has some antecedent. There's something you're referring to. Your imagination is confined by the ontological reality of existence itself. And anything outside of the realm of existence will never occur to you. The very fact that we ask, does God exist, is evidence that he does. In the City of God, Augustine, or if you're out east, Augustine, says that the existence, and I'm not quoting him, I'm summarizing, this is my Cliff Notes version of his reasoning in part of this excellent volume. The existence of any beauty at all indicates, listen carefully, an ultimate standard of beauty against which we measure all lesser approximations to the standard. If I say that hillside covered with springtime wildflowers, with children running through, is beautiful, I'm making a statement regarding the ultimate standard of beauty against which I even have any kind of measure by which to say, that's beautiful, because there is the assumption in my consciousness that there is some ultimate beauty to which all lesser beauties are approximating. The same is true with goodness, moral goodness. The existence of any moral goodness at all indicates an ultimate standard of goodness against which we are measuring all lesser approximations to the standard. Are you tracking? You're on a public transportation and you see a young man just rippling with muscles and perfectly healthy push an 82-year-old lady aside for the one seat that's available, and something goes just berserk inside of you. You know that shouldn't be happening. At the same time, if you watch somebody of similar muscular build and a little bit of courage step in and say, dude, really? Come on. Give her the seat. That courage you admire. You're hoping he can pull it off. You're rooting for the good guy. You want the old woman to have the seat. The existence of any moral goodness at all presupposes the existence of an ultimate moral goodness against which we're measuring it, and my punchline, the existence of any love at all, any love at all, any love at all, no matter how broken, dysfunctional, or wounded. And all of our loves are broken, dysfunctional, and wounded. Do you love someone? Yes, you do. An auntie, an uncle, a nana, a papa, a little brother, a little sister, a best friend from high school. Do you love someone? A boyfriend, a girlfriend? Yes, you love someone. And the fact that you love them, even with a tweaked, broken, bent love, is evidence that the relationship can be developed, that healing can occur, that you can love better, that you can actually rectify a selfish impulse and be a better friend. And the fact that you know you can be a better friend, that you can, in fact, love better, is revelatory of the fact that there is an ultimate, perfect standard of love to which all of us are approximating, pushing, pursuing, longing for, wishing for. The Jesus of the Scripture has many titles. This is one of my favorite titles for the Christ of the Scriptures. An Old Testament prophecy points forward to him and says, okay, Haggai says, let me tell you what you're looking for. Let me tell you who he is. The one who's coming, he is the desire of all nations. He is the one everyone wants if they knew what they actually wanted. In our clear, sober moments, when we are thinking clearly and emoting beautifully, we are longing for a love that is personified in the person of Christ, even before we know his name, which would be my case because I was raised an atheist. I didn't know anything about Jesus. What I did know is that I loved my mother, and I hated the fact that she was being hurt. And that was evidence for me. The fact that I loved my mom and my mom loved me was evidence that the pain doesn't have to be, that there is such a thing as a pure love free from pain. Jesus is the personification, the embodiment. He is the desire of all nations. He is the desire of all teenagers in all bedrooms. He is the desire of all men and all women on Tinder. He is the desire, G.K. Chesterton said, quoting him again, every man who goes to a brothel is looking for Jesus. And he doesn't even know it, because Jesus is the pulsating desire of every single human heart, even before we know it's him we're longing for. He is the desire of all nations and every individual. And your life is, to quote the Beatles, a long and winding road of coming to the epiphany. And the sooner you come to that epiphany, the more leverage for your life quality you will be able to sequester going forward, because you're young. I mean, think about it. Right now, if you fall head over heels in love with the most beautiful person in the universe, it will impact the quality of your life, your career, your choice of a life partner, how you'll raise your children. It'll impact everything. Anybody who's in love is a better person. Anybody who's in love is a better person. And anyone who's in love with the ultimate lover of our souls has the best shot at living a high-quality life. I love the work of this scholar who she had to find out, Rebecca Lemon, she had to find out what's the history of the word addiction in the English language. What's the first usage in print of the word addiction? Where does the word come from? So she traced the history as scholars do, and she came all the way back and back and back and back, and she found the first usage of the word addiction, and it was in the form of a prayer. Make fast thy promises to thy servant, which is addicted unto thy worship. The first consciousness of addiction in Western thought is that God is worthy of our deepest impulses and attachments and habitual pursuit. If there's one thing to become addicted to, it is to become addicted to the worship of God, because the one addiction that feeds rather than starves us is the love of God. It is the one addiction. If you become addicted to the love of God, it will exponentially grow your capacities as a human being, your faculties, your abilities, your intelligence, your emotional intelligence, all your relationships. If you fall in love with God, that love will grow and expand you. All the imposter loves that the world is offering will shrink your capacity for love. To quote Jonty, our guy from New Zealand, as you fall in love with some kind of technological projection in the form of whatever, Jonty said, you start to isolate yourself from 3D girls. Dudes, I have to tell you, you do not want to isolate yourself from 3D girls. They're the only kind there are. 2D girls are, listen, not girls. They're technological algorithms. And if she says she loves you, she doesn't. That's you talking to you through a machine. So, what about addiction? We live in a culture of addiction. Johann Hari has framed addiction in such a remarkable new way. I wish this had been the case for me when I was coming up through addiction. My mom was an addict, and many people I've known over the years have been addicts. And Hari says in Chasing the Scream that the opposite of addiction isn't sobriety, it's connection. He goes on to say, and I didn't have time to quote it, he says, all along we've been singing war songs about addicts, the war on drugs, war songs about addicts. And he says, all the while we should have been singing love songs to the addicts. Because the opposite of addiction is not sobriety, it's connection. He says in the book that if you are alone, you have no chance of breaking an addiction. But if you have people who love you, you have a good chance. It's a remarkable book. If you know anybody who's addicted, if you're addicted to anything, you should explore his work. We are designed for connection of the most satisfying quality. The connection that breaks all addictions while installing one addiction that is worthy of having. That addiction is described by King David in these words, as the deer pants for the water brook, so pants my soul for you, O God. My soul thirsts for God, for the living God. You are thirsty for a love that is to be found ultimately in the perfectly pure and satisfying love of God personified in Christ. We are thirsty for a quality of love that finds no perfectly satisfying match in this world. That doesn't mean that we can't have good relationships. We can, we do. But all of our relationships, even the best marriages, even the best friendships, even the best parent-child relationships are carrying wounds and dysfunctions. And sometimes we just can't even get eye contact with the people that we're closest to. But there is a love that transcends everything this world has to offer. I'm testifying to you as a fellow human. I'm telling you that I have taken deep, deep, deep drafts of this liquid love, this love for which we're thirsty, and it is so satisfying. It is so satisfying. So let's consider Jesus, who is the embodiment and source of this love that we're all looking for. One of the most amazing stories, not just in the Bible, but in all of literature. Listen, this story, you should read this story and again and again and again revisit it. This is in John chapter 4, sometimes referred to as the Samaritan woman at the well, and the story begins by telling us that a woman of Samaria came to draw water, and Jesus said to her, "Give me a drink." This is sometimes called the Benjamin Franklin effect. Look it up, Google it. It's an amazing social science experiment that has been done that shows that if you do something for someone, the chances of a relationship developing are less likely than if you ask a favor of them. The moment Benjamin Franklin had a rival, an enemy, a political enemy that hated him, and he said, you know what? I'm going to win him over. How am I going to do it? He has a book, a rare book in his library, so he wrote a note to this guy who hated him and said, hey, you have this amazing book, and could I borrow it for a week? The guy loaned him the book, and they became the best of friends until his death. Because what's happening here is Jesus is the master psychologist, Jesus is the mighty counselor, Jesus is the great physician, both of the mind and the body. Jesus comes along and he says to this woman, knowing the context, she's a woman, he's a man. She's a Samaritan, he's a Jew. There is nothing within her mind or history that would lead her to think that this man would receive anything from her hand. It would be defiling for him, a Jewish male, to receive a drink from the hand of a Samaritan woman. And she knows this. She feels it. When you come to the end of the story, which is remarkable, the woman said to him, I know that Messiah is coming, who is called Christ, and when he comes, he will tell us all things. And Jesus said, and this is such a remarkable moment, I who speak to you am he. Now, that's the last verse, but what's happening in between that comes to this conclusion? Give me a drink, Jesus says. The woman's blown away, and she literally says to him, how is it that you, being a Jewish man, are asking a drink of me, a Samaritan woman? How is this even possible? And the punchline that we're brought to is that Jesus reveals to this woman in a conversation, he reveals to her, I know everything about you, and I still love you. Go get your husband. Husband, what am I supposed to say when the husband subject comes up? She's mastered this in the mirror. I don't have a husband. No, you don't. Actually, you've been married 5 times, and the man you're living with now is not your husband at all. Psst, I'm number 7. And yet she's not repelled. She's not repelled because Jesus, in his interactions with her, has revealed that I know everything about you, and I still love you. That's the quality of love that you're looking for, that I'm looking for, that we're all looking for. Every waking moment and in our truest dreams, we are looking for a quality of love that knows us and yet loves us. Father, thank you for Jesus, whom we now recommend to all who are within the hearing of my voice, and in whose name we pray, amen.
I'm already chosen. I know